guys, welcome back to another episode of the Budget 4x4 Live. Today's going to be a super cool episode, especially for all those people looking for a 2-inch suspension lift for their Pajero. Hopefully today is going to, make up or help make up your decision for you, and whether you need a 2-inch suspension lift for your needs, and which kit is suitable as well for the type of off-roading you're going to be doing, or whether you're going to be touring. Because it's probably the most most popular question that gets asked as well on the Facebook groups is what suspension people should run, and also what their recommendations are for a specific kit. So today we're essentially just going to go through 3 most popular lift kits, and I'm just going to tell you the pros and cons about each, the specifications and the costs, and also which lift kit I'm running, and basically how I find it so far. Righto, so I guess the first one that we're going to start with today is the West Coast suspension lift kit, which I am currently running in my Pajero. Now this is probably way overdue already. People asking me how it's going, and I've now had it for 18 months, so a year and a half, and it is going really well. So I'm just going to go through a few options that you can get for the short wheelbase and the long wheelbase. So essentially the front is rated up to 65 kilos, and for the short wheelbase you can only go in the rear 0 to 150, whereas with the long wheelbase you can go 0 to 150 or 0 to 300 kilos. And I also run a 60-10mm strut spacer at the front. This basically just means that the vehicle is nice and level, and it doesn't have like a nosedive sort of look, which is what I want. And man, essentially 0 to 150 is very good if you're just gonna go out occasionally, load your car up, with all your camping gear, instead of having a constant load rating spring where you don't have anything at the back. It's just going to be very stiff. So make sure if you do have, let's say, a dual battery setup in the back, or any constant load, then sure, you can go for constant load or 0 to 300, but 0 to 150 is perfectly fine. Now with these shocks, it is a twin tube shock, and it has a 36mm ball, which basically just means the piston size inside the shock is 36mm. Now this is sort of an average size. It's not big, but it's also not too small. It's definitely the smallest of the 3 options that I'm going to be talking about today. But honestly, my feedback so far, it's a very comfortable setup. I definitely rate it. It's especially, it feels like a stock car, but it's just raised, and that's what I love about the suspension kit. This is also personal preference, but I do like that the coils are black. It just means the car looks standard with the blue shocks. That looks very nice, that it's lifted. That's just a personal preference obviously, but I just do like the fact that it's black. But yeah, so far on the road, off-road, sand, all that type of driving is very comfortable, and I honestly can't fault it. So far I don't have any leaks. Given that it's a year and a half old, you would expect that it's still holding up. I'd be interested to see whether it keeps up to 2 years, and if it does, I'll be really happy with it. In terms of twin tubes and monotube shocks, so I'll just quickly tell you the basic difference. Now as you can see on this photo, on the left hand side is a monotube shock, and on the right hand side is a twin tube. Now with the monotube, the shell case itself works as a cylinder, and oil, gas, piston valves, etc. are all set inside a single tube. Whereas with a twin tube, it has a separate cylinder set inside the shell case, and the piston valve moves up and down within the inner cylinder. So basically it just means the monotube shocks are way better. It's better at dampening force and also heat dissipation, just because it has a bigger bore usually than the twin tube shock, so it's just going to handle heat better. So essentially what I would say is, if you're going to do off-roading or heaps of corrugated roads regularly, so at least once a week, sure, then go your monotube shocks over your twin tube. But if you're just going to go out once a month, let's say for example camping, we're going to do corrugated roads, then sure, twin tube is fine. My shockers are still fine, and they are twin tube. So I mean, it's sort of what you're going to use the car for. But essentially, yes, if you're not going to do that much off-roading, get twin tube. If you're going to do regular off-roading, get monotube. Now also the price for the West Coast suspension lift kit is $1,480 with pre-assembled struts. So they basically put the shocky into the front struts or coils, I would say, and that forms a strut, and that is sent to your home where you can just fit it yourself. So yeah, that is really not a bad price at all, and also the cheapest for the three kits that I'm going to be talking about today. So next up is the Lovells or Lovells springs, whatever you want to call it, with the Dobinsons shocks. Now this is also a very common or popular option that people go with, which seems to be holding up really well. Now the front is rated, well, they don't say a specific rating, but all I could find is they have a medium, heavy duty and extra heavy duty option, and in the rear they've got a 0 to 150, 100 to 300 kilo or a 300 kilo plus constant load, which means they are suited for your more heavyweight sort of stuff. They also come with the monotube shockies, which is a 46mm piston or ball, which is good. So it's definitely bigger. Dobinsons shocks, you've probably heard of it before. It's a very good shock. It's made in Germany, and it's definitely a good option to have. The only downfall that I've heard from Dobinsons before is that they are very stiff. So that's just one thing to consider. If you want a comfortable ride, make sure you do have a constant load in your car. Whereas if I reckon you don't have any constant load in your car, the shockies might be a bit stiff. That's also to do with the Lovells springs. I've also heard people say it's a bit stiff, but it gives you a higher raised suspension. So that's sort of up to you. Do you want the height or do you want the comfort? You've got to make up your mind over there. But yeah, essentially it's not too bad at all. In terms of pricing, it's $1,832. That was the cheapest option I could find with pre-assembled struts, and $1,583 without assembly. So it's definitely a bit dearer than the West Coast suspension, and it's essentially the same thing. But yeah, like I said, people have mentioned in the Facebook groups that the spring is soft when you fit it to the car, but over time they sort of stiffen up, which is obviously not a good thing, because it just means it's going to be an uncomfortable ride. I can also personally say, because my dad used to have a Pajero as well, and he had that combination, the Lovells springs with the Dobinsons shocks, and I can definitely say it's definitely a bit stiffer ride, and it's more suited if you definitely have a constant load, like a fridge at the back and drawers and that sort of thing, where you do have weight. So in my opinion, if you're going to be having drawers, fridge, new battery, all that sort of stuff at the back, Lovells is probably a good option for you, just because it's more suited for the heavy duty load ratings and that sort of things. So yeah, that's where I would definitely go for that option over the West Coast suspension option. But obviously if you're not having a constant load, West Coast suspension option. Alright, last but not least, the good old Dobinsons lift kit. Now this is probably the most popular one, and it's also the most premium brand or kit, I would say. Now in terms of load ratings, for the front it's 50 to 80 kilos and 80 to 100 kilos. And at the rear it's 0 to 100 or a 200 kilogram constant load for the short wheelbase only. And for the long wheelbase, there's quite a few options. There's 0 to 100, 180, 250 and a 400 constant load for the long wheelbase. The good thing about these shockies as well, they also have the biggest bore out of them all, which is a 50/60mm piston. So that's obviously a massive heavy duty piston, which is very good, and that just makes it the most premium gear and probably the most tough as well out of the range. And man, what I can say is they are not cheap. That's the only thing. So you're definitely going to pay for what you get. So it's $1,878 pre-assembled for the short wheelbase, and it's $1,947 for the long wheelbase. So it's definitely the most expensive, but I reckon you do get what you pay for. As you can see on the actual shockies as well, are very solid. So down the end where they mount to the car, you can see it's a solid piece of aluminium, whereas the other shockies, they are sort of, I don't know, you can see it's definitely a cheaper made sort of option. So you definitely get what you pay for. You can even go to a remote res or a remote reservoir option, but that's going to cost you $3,000. So definitely a lot of money. And to be honest, I would recommend the Dobinsons lift kit if you like a heavy tourer. Like if you've got all the modifications on your Pajero and like roof racks, drawers, bull bar, did I say fridge, steel battery, literally if you have everything, I would definitely say don't cheap out on a good suspension lift kit. Make sure to get a good suspension like Dobinsons one that has all the ratings suited to your vehicle, and also make sure you you go to a weigh bridge and you see how heavy your car is. You can even go to the suspension shop. Most of them will have scales and they can actually see how heavy your car is at the front, how heavy your car is at the rear. And also make sure for the front you choose the correct option. So usually what I would say, if you have no accessories at the front, go to like a 0 to 60 and go 50 to 80 kilo if you have a bull bar. And if you have a bull bar with a winch and maybe bash plates as well, go 80 to 100 kilos. Now that way you've got the perfect suspension setup for your car, and definitely don't cheap out on that, because otherwise it's not going to drive right. Now the only thing with the Dobinsons, I guess this could happen with any sort of brand really, is people have sometimes problems fitting them. For some reason one side is higher than the other side. I'm not sure really what the case is. And for the front struts, if it goes up and down, it makes a squeaky noise. So yeah, I mean, some people do experience that. I guess it might just be a faulty strut. I mean, things happen like that. It doesn't mean it's a bad brand or anything. I mean, just things happen. So just take it back and hopefully they give you a new one. So that'd be good. Personally, I can't obviously say how good the kit is because I don't know someone personally that I've driven the car with the Dobinsons kit. So I can't say, but I would say, I mean, Dobinsons has been around many years, so I would say their kits are definitely refined. So yeah, essentially, if you have to choose between the three kits, if you're like me and you're on a budget, you just want a 2-inch suspension lift kit that's comfortable, and you just want to get higher off the ground, you're not necessarily having a constant load in the rear, sure, go the West Coast suspension lift kit, that is very good. If you've got a constant load, let's say maybe drawers and a fridge at the back, definitely go the Lovells or the Bilstein. It is a bit stiffer ride, so just prepare for that. The West Coast suspension option, in my opinion, is definitely more comfortable. If you're just going out once a month, then I would say the Dobinsons one is definitely overrated and you're wasting your money that you could spend on other modifications. Cool, so then I would like to add what kit not to get. Now this is also personal experience of what I heard from people saying on the Facebook groups. Webco shocks, they are terrible apparently, so definitely don't get Webco shocks, and also don't get any brand that you don't know of. Like I've seen on eBay so many dodgy brands. Like if you're not familiar with the brand, or if you don't know about it or haven't seen it around everywhere, don't buy it, okay, because it's probably not good. Then the other thing, King springs. So this is obviously a popular option with some people as well. I'm not sure if they're cheap or not, but people tend to go for them first. It's the yellow, well usually I think they still are, the yellow springs. They are very stiff. So I used to work at a suspension place and I would get people in all the time with King springs, and they just say it's such a harsh drive. Please change it out to the West Coast one, which is way more comfortable. So that's just something to look out for. And then the last thing is EFS shocks. They tend to rust over time. I'm not sure why that's the case, but I've seen also people come in after like 2 years. They've just done like a beach work every now and then and it's completely rusted out. So I'm not sure if that's the quality of materials they use or what. But if you're looking at EFS or West Coast suspension, definitely go West Coast suspension. That's ultimately my guide for you today. Hopefully that helped a lot in deciding which kit is for you. I mean, I obviously just told you which one is probably more suited to your needs, and yeah, but ultimately I'm happy with my kit, and so far it's going really well. I don't really have any problems with it, and it's not nosediving, it's still where it was when it got fitted. So yeah, happy days. Guys, if you have any questions, make sure to drop it down below. I'll get back to you, of course, and hopefully I've covered most things. And yeah, that's enough rambling for me today. So hopefully you got a good day, and yeah, best of luck choosing the right kit for you. Thanks guys for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.